Brutally Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at Rockabilia.com. And now, on to the show.
Say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Brutally Speaking podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is Craig Mabbitt of Escape the Fates, of Dead Rabbits, who just recently put out some new music, most notably Oxygen. It's their latest single. You can catch it on all your major DSPs, Spotify, iTunes, whatever. You can also hear it on Sirius Octane if you have that. This was an interesting thing. There's a lot of interesting things I've been thinking about with this episode and why I've been excited to get it out. I was thinking about how I found Craig initially as you know, a musician, and it made me wonder if this is really an avenue anymore. But then it also kind of got me thinking about something about geographical location and where you're at. Obviously, with the internet being what it is, it has basically made it a borderless country, or a world, I should say, where we are able to access pretty much anything from anywhere at any time. But I was reminded, leading up to the conversation with Craig and thinking about how I got into Craig was through Bless the Fall, I think, like a lot of people. And I remember seeing, I think it was at my parents' house, and they had, or I turned on one or the other, but Much Music, which is the Canadian version of MTV, essentially. And in thinking about that, I just kind of had an epiphany where I was like, I wonder if everyone had access to Much Music, or if it was solely a thing based on if you're close to Canada. I would love to know more about that. I guess I could Google that. Maybe I will when I'm done with this and get an answer. But I remember seeing the video for Guys Like You Make Us Look Bad by Bless the Fall off of his Last Walk album. And I remember thinking, this is a really cool song. I went out to Best Buy, bought the album really cheap, because that was the beauty of buying albums. If you were able to find something pretty quickly upon release, is that you could always get it for about half the price. So I remember buying this CD, really falling in love with the album, and kind of feeling like I had found a band in the newer, ranks of metalcore, for lack of a better term. Because I feel like there were certain bands, like, and my timeline might be wrong, but I feel like there were bands like Asking Alexandria, Attack, and stuff like that. And I just kind of felt like it was people playing parts and not really knowing how to write a full song. And some of the tropes of, like, especially Attack, it's easy to make fun of them now. And almost kind of in a weird sense, like, it almost has come full circle where it was like lauded, then it was made fun of, and now it's come all the way back around. It's almost kind of like nu metal to a degree, or I guess a lot of things where it's like, that's hokey and it sucks. And then it comes 10, 15 years later and it's like, well, this actually was really cool. But I just remember thinking that, to me, Bless the Fall stood head and shoulders above everybody else in songwriting. I think they just had catchier hooks, just for me, it was what I was looking for. And then I think, like most people, I followed Craig into Escape the Fate, in addition to everything that was going on with that band at the time. And to just kind of follow Craig over his career and to see him now, oddly, I feel weird saying this, as more of an adult, where it's like, okay, you've been established in your career for probably close to 2 decades now. You're a father, you do Twitch, you've really opened yourself up to kind of allowing us all to see more of who you are. And to me, I always kind of find that interesting, just the journey of somebody, especially musicians who get signed young and grow up in front of all of us. I don't think a lot of us know what that's like. So to me, getting to talk to Craig, I thought was going to be really fun. And honestly, I wasn't really expecting too much of where it went initially, but I had been reading about how at the time this AI thing had created music, and somehow it was getting put onto real bands like Spotify's and such. And it was a pretty big thing to see for about 2 days, like where bands are like, that's not our music, this isn't us, like we're trying to take this down. And just starting the conversation, I guess, of like, how do we feel about AI generated music? I think for the most part, it's fine. I think it gets interesting when you start seeing people doing like these mashups of like, what if Chester Bennington fronted Nirvana or something like that? And in those situations, it gets kind of cool, but kind of gets a little murky with probably intellectual property and things like that. Famously, obviously, the George Carlin special. Someone generated an AI George Carlin special as if George Carlin was alive now, and it sucked, so that wasn't great. But on top of that, got hit with a cease and desist basically right out the gate from the family of George Carlin. So you're kind of in this gray area where it's like, what is possible, what's allowed, I guess. And I don't know. I feel like I'm on the fence because I feel like it sort of negates the years and whatever real experience you're going through to create your own art and things like that. But it's kind of interesting to pose it to Craig and just kind of get his take on it as someone who this is their livelihood. But I also felt like it was kind of a great segue into just sort of talking about creativity and art and life and, even for Craig, sobriety. I think honestly, that's something that we don't discuss a whole lot, but it is something that ends up becoming sort of a sore subject sometimes when trying to book guests. Is I can't tell you how many times a publicist or someone will be like, "Oh, I don't drink. This person doesn't drink," or whatever, and it's like, that's fine. I understand like the choice I made with the show name, but in the grand scheme of things, the show is not about that. So I was a little worried that maybe Craig wouldn't come on, but I really enjoyed this chat. I really would love to pick Craig's brain a little bit more about some other stuff, but maybe with some more Dead Rabbits releases and or potentially some more Escape the Fate music on the horizon. Maybe that opportunity will present itself then, and we can kind of do more of a full-on thing. But in the meantime, let's get into my conversation with Craig, and I will talk to you all on the other side of it. First of all, I feel like I just was reading about this like 10 minutes ago. Apparently not everyone, a handful of artists have been getting hacked on their Spotify's, I guess, with AI created songs that are somehow infiltrating other people's like actual accounts. Like, have you seen this in the last day? No, I guess not then.
No,
yeah, I guess there was like,
heard about this.
I guess there's like, as of the thing I was reading from yesterday, because I don't have socials on my phone, so a lot of times I got to wait till I'm at a computer. But yeah, I guess yesterday's like big buzz on like the music blogs was that like 15 to 20 different like bands, all kind of like metalcore bands, like blanking on them now, but essentially like this AI thing permeated into their Spotify accounts and was just throwing AI generated music into their thing with the same like album artwork unilaterally across like the board. And so now everyone was like panicking, trying to figure it out because like Spotify wasn't helping any of the artists, being like, take this shit down, this isn't ours. And so now it's kind of created this like whole thing of like, should the AI random generated music be allowed on these like platforms? Because if this is what's going to happen, then obviously it's proving that, it's not going to work. If the whole goal is to just kind of dissuade people.
Yeah, I don't think AI generated music should be on any music streaming platform that actual artists use. I think there should be a separate lane for that. I know people have a lot of fun with creating random songs like that. I stream on Twitch a lot when I'm not on tour. So I've messed around with Suno. I'm sure you've heard of Suno. And we're
No,
like,
actually.
oh, Suno's like, it makes AI songs. So you put in a style of music and what you want the song to be about. So we've made like a post-hardcore song about the stream, or when Escape the Fate was on the emo orchestra tour, we made a hardcore song about eating at Olive Garden. So just having random songs being created for fun like that, if there was a platform to share those things, which there is on Suno, just keep that stuff in its own lane. But yeah, if it's starting to infiltrate actual artist pages and disguising itself as these artists' songs, there's an issue with that. So Spotify should definitely be on top of those things and helping these artists get those off their page. But if anything, I guess it's bringing some attention to those artist pages, whether it's their music or not, and hopefully brings attention to their actual music.
I mean, in the general sense of sites were picking up on it, and it wasn't. I mean, like, there's a friends band from here in Grand Rapids, Hollowfront. They were signed to a smaller label and did a lot of touring with like August Burns Red and stuff like that. But it was a thing where like they got hit, and I'm just like, okay, so like not discrediting them from like a After the Barrel or something like that, but it's like the lineage of bands where it's like, okay, bands of this level, and then like you guys are kind of here. It's like, shit, if it's getting you guys, then I guess it's something that needs to be thought of, and kind of preventative actions need to be taken, because like you said, like that indirectly is potentially messing with another source of income for you guys, like an income stream, or if it has to be a thing of like you're getting locked out of your stuff, like that's even worse. So it's a thing where I'll have to do some more research on and figure out like if they figured out how this happened or whatever. But just the fact that as of when I'm reading this from yesterday, that there were people that were like, we're trying to get in touch with Spotify and they're not able to help. It's like this sucks, and that's a pretty big damning like case of evidence against people and like how to use AI and music and so forth. So I just thought it was kind of an interesting talking point, because obviously you've got presumably a new Dead Rabbits record on the horizon, or at least an EP, and obviously like wouldn't want something like this happening to you as well.
Absolutely not. And I feel this AI stuff, it's only going to get worse in the next couple of years. So I think preventative measures need to be taken before some of this AI programs are released to the public for public use. Because it's just going to get worse, man. The deep fakes,
right?
The fake songs, all that stuff, it's going to get bad. And we already are seeing a little bit of it start to happen, even with this situation that you're mentioning. So
someone was like, not to take it in a very extreme measure, but I heard about this being a thing somewhat recently too. And it just was a thing where it's like, my mind just would never think to take it here. Like, it's not in my frame of reference of being like, oh, if I had this technology, what's one of the first things I would do? But it does make sense. But I'm waiting for this to have a giant backlash for very obvious reasons. But I was informed that, like we have all this technology on our phone and stuff, like, Instagram filters that will do like face swapping and all this kind of stuff, which part of me never really wanted to get involved with that, because it's like, just slippery slope of like, how often do you need my face being scanned by something and then going wherever it's going? But I had heard that another avenue that they were taking this in was using it for, I don't want to say revenge porn, but essentially taking like, if your girlfriend, you had photos of her, you could superimpose her face onto whatever you're watching. And I was like, that seems super sketchy in the day and age of deepfakes now.
I read about this, I want to say maybe a year ago.
I figured it was newer.
Yeah, I was seeing some articles about it happening with some celebrities, and they were pretty upset. So again, we got to take some preventative measures, because this could be very damaging to people.
Yeah, I just wonder in the day and age now where people will falsify a lot of things to get back at people. It's like, how that seems super sketchy to me, where it's like now there's going to be potentially damning evidence that's not really you or whoever, and it's like, okay, like now you can pin like crimes on people with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a very thin line between quality of life and people abusing whatever the feature is to do some damaging things. I just saw that they were releasing this phone, and I was reading about it. I can't remember if it was a Galaxy or what it was, but it's like, oh, now the photographer taking your photo doesn't have to miss out on being in the photo. You can take the picture and then take a
Oh
picture
yeah,
of the person that took the picture and it'll put them in the photo. Oh, you don't like the
yeah,
positioning of the people in this picture? You can just move the person over. And I'm like, what's going to be real anymore in the next couple years?
yeah.
Like, just,
That's so weird.
you open up the app and you're just feeding yourself all this fake shit.
Yeah.
It blows my mind.
I gotta ask. Lastly, just like I always like talking to people who have kids because I feel like it just puts there's a multitude of reasons why, even though I don't have kids and I don't want kids, but I think it's interesting what it does to the person who has them. Like, how does it make you change how you think about things? How has it changed you? Because I think change in people is an interesting process to
Oh,
just kind
for
of
sure.
navigate. But then also with kids, like having a lot of friends who have them, I think it's interesting to watch them become their own kind of sentient beings of like how they start thinking for themselves and just
Mhm.
different things where I'm like, oh my God, that is like, if you know one of the parents more than the other, it's like, oh my God, that was how your dad was when you were like the same
Yeah.
age. If you have that like longevity with the person. But to me, I feel like, seeing all of these things, like in my head, I'm just like, oh, that's crazy. And for the most part, it won't really affect my life because that's just not a realm or a thing that I'm surrounded by. You, on the other hand, having, I think, 2 kids, if I'm not mistaken,
Mhm.
that would be something I would read and be like, okay, this could affect my career, but also how do I start thinking about it because my kids are going to be affected by this? Like, is that
Yeah.
something you feel like you have to keep up with just to be making sure
Yeah,
that they're safe with whatever they're doing?
I talked to them a lot about everything that's happening, like you said, if I read an article that I feel like might affect something that they're doing, I have a conversation with them. Hey, be careful with this. Don't answer this. Don't give this information there. My son's a little younger, so he's restricted from having certain things, obviously. Um, and you just got to keep a close eye on that stuff and just educate them, you know, let
Yeah.
them know that the world can do some crazy things. So you have to protect yourself. I'm not always
Yeah.
going to be there to be looking over your shoulder. So let me tell you how you can react to this. And, it's definitely, like you said, it's changed me a lot. If I didn't have my kids, I don't
Mm.
know. I don't know who the hell I would be, but they've definitely made me a better person over the years, as they get older. And I had them very young. So as they get older, I realize, oh my God, especially my daughter, she's going to be 18 in October. I'm like,
Wow.
did I look that young? Like, what the shit I was doing at that age? Like, this is
Yeah.
not okay. So, it definitely changes your perspective on things and helps you realize other people's point of view. And um, it's a give and take. My goal with my kids is I want them to be amazing humans, and I want them to be better than I was, so that it just trickles down. Um, the perfect way to describe that, especially with the past stuff that I dealt with growing up in my life, is I saw this video um, that explained past trauma, and the glass of water
Mm.
is dirty. So you're kind of
Hmm.
pouring it over, and you want the glass of water to be cleaner as it trickles down. And that's my goal, is I want their glasses to be crystal clear.
That's an interesting analogy. That definitely sounds like a
Yeah.
therapy analogy that I
Yeah, it was
probably
it was
should
a
have heard at some
visual
point.
thing. So it's like, all right, here's the glass of water, and here's the past trauma, and it makes it dirty. And what you want to do is you want to clean the glass so that it doesn't trickle down to further generations.
Yeah, it's interesting how a lot of times when you start going to therapy, like I know I went for what I thought was one reason, and we kind of addressed that. And then the underlying things were more familial based, and you're just like, God damn it. Like,
Uh-huh.
I didn't think it'd be that cliche. And then it's like, as I've been going back recently to kind of figure out a lot more of that stuff and kind of get ahead of it, it's been interesting to just kind of be like, oh man, things are kind of getting unlocked, that like memories that I guess you sort of suppressed or whatever, and then it's like someone says something and it just triggers like a memory, and you're like, oh man, it's like Inside Out is legit. Like here's a core memory, and it's like some good mixed with a little bit of sadness and
Uh-huh.
stuff, and I forgot about that. Oh man, that explains so much of why I am the way I am now. I didn't even realize. It's funny how that happens.
It does, man. And we're programmed to think anything that's cliche is dumb, so you don't want to do it. But
Yeah.
when I started doing therapy over COVID and I got sober, it you got to look past that. And as cliche as it might be, it does help, and you start realizing a lot of things, and it's crazy to know how the brain works. Like, oh
Yeah.
well, I didn't make myself bury that memory. It's like your brain just naturally makes you forget things so that you go into survival mode. So it's
Right.
very healthy to do that, talk about things. And yeah, you'll go in for one reason, and then there's a cause and effect, and you find out that there's a million other reasons that cause that one reason, and it's just okay, you know.
Yeah, I think the journey through therapy has been really interesting, and I would I'll posit this, but I'll kind of give you a for instance. So one of the things that I initially had gone for was a lot of overthinking things.
Mhm.
I remember getting a piece of homework that essentially was like a bunch of gears in a photo, and then it was like put in your main problem in the biggest cog, and then start putting like a bunch of other problems you're trying to solve around it. Obviously, I didn't need to do the actual exercise. I looked at it and go, oh, if I don't feed all the other bullshit and I just focus on the main thing, then that one will be the only thing I have to focus on versus all these other things that spin that one out of control. Got it.
Mhm.
And to see how, like, even in real life, like after getting that tool, having my car break down in the middle of a busy road downtown where I live on a Friday, and I was like, oh shit. And I started spiraling of like, how much is this going to cost? Oh my God, I don't know how to fix this. And then it was like, what can I handle right now? Deal with that, move forward. And it was kind of crazy just to have that kind of clairvoyance in the middle of the
Mhm.
chaos of just like, I know how to solve this. It just needs to be this thing and just move forward. Now,
It's all
I would
it's all
ask
about
you
perspective. It's all about perspective.
100%.
You gotta let go, know that you're not in control of
Yeah,
anything except for yourself and how you react to
right.
all the bullshit that might be coming to you or has happened to you. And once you realize that, then you can start getting in front of those things. Because, like you
Yeah,
said, I'd probably freak out and cause a million other problems if that was me and my car broke down in the middle. But it's like, all right, take a deep breath. How am I going to react to this? How can I
yeah,
handle this? Let's do it step by step by step. And it takes a lot,
yeah.
Therapy helps. It takes years and years and years to start training your brain that way, but it gets easier, day by day.
Something that I would be interested to ask and kind of venture into, you talk about getting sober recently ish. And congratulations on that as well.
Thank you
Identifying
very
that
much.
obviously is a problem for you. And also thank you for coming on the show, because some people who are sober or recently sober don't want to associate sort of with the show with the title it is, but really it's more of a play on words of having really honest conversations essentially with a
Yeah.
stranger. But um, I would kind of be remiss to not ask, like, how has songwriting and kind of experiencing a lot of firsts for you been in the newfound sobriety? How has that been for you?
It it was shocking at first. My first
Mm.
couple tours, once COVID started dying down and you could play shows again, I was really nervous. Number one, to get back into that sort of scene. I wanted to make sure I was staying sober, and luckily I was able, like I was saying previously, change my perspective on the matter. I know a lot of sober people that they have to do uh, multiple AA meetings a day, or other guys that tour and they're sober and they can't have the drinks anywhere. Like, no drinks in the green room, no drinks here. My perspective was, I'm the one with the problem. I'm
Mm.
not going to, and I don't want that problem to affect people around me like it has. My self-destructive behavior when you're always an alcoholic, but when I was still a drinking alcoholic, I was already affecting people around me negatively. So I'm not going to do that in my sober journey either. You want to have a drink
Mm.
around me? Totally fine. I'm the one with the problem. So once I accepted that, and that was my perspective, touring was easy. And it was the
Mm.
power in no, because it's so easy on the road to get somebody comes up to you, hey man, can I get you a drink? Can I get you a shot? And I was always a yes man. I
Right.
didn't know how to say no to anything. I would say yes to anyone, whatever. Yeah, cool. Yeah, let's go do it. So I had to train myself to learn how to say no. Oh, no, thanks,
No.
man.
Yeah.
And the word sober is very strong too. So there's power in no. No, thanks. I'm sober. Oh, that's great, man. My bad for asking. It's like, no, it's no problem that you asked. Thank you for the offer. but I'm sober.
Right.
And it just got easier from there. And I was shocked to play songs during the set that I had wrote in the past and realized how much it affected me today. I'm like, oh my God, I was crying out for help and I didn't even realize,
Mm,
crying out for help to myself. And I'm the one that wrote it. And now I'm looking at the song from this position in my life and realizing a lot of stuff. And I'm like, God, that's insane. And that's just, that's natural. Anybody in a sober journey and being an alcoholic, because I'm always like, why didn't I get sober earlier? Why did I do this? But that's just a beat yourself up sort of thing. And you can't do that. It's all about focusing on the here and now and becoming a better person every single day.
Yeah, I think you hit on something there that I think is really profound and something that it's taken me I'm about to be 40 in a month, but it took me up until I'd say the last
birthday.
Thank you. I think it took me about maybe the last two, I would say really since like probably the pandemic, that I kind of started with therapy and stuff like that, realizing the power of no. It's also refinding my why was in there as well for a few things, but it's interesting when you kind of come to the conclusion that I need to stop saying yes to everything and saying no, and how like profound of an impact that can actually have on your life, whereas you think of it and you look at it as more of a negative. So to me, when I hear people learning the power of no, it's like, oh man, it's setting boundaries is so fucking huge. And the harder part is sometimes having to do it with people that mean a lot to you. Like I've had to do it with my parents, and it's like, it's really hard to set boundaries and really adhere to them.
Really hard. But that goes really hard. Therapy, man, it goes even deeper, because then you start realizing, why is it so hard for me to say no to people? It's because there's some deep embedded, you need to be accepted, right?
Yeah.
Because the only person you should care the most about is you. You're number one. And that's why there's power in no, is you're looking out for your best interest. But it's so hard to do that when you feel badly about yourself, and then you just keep digging into the past and healing things along the way. And it's a journey for sure, man.
It's been one that I think, I talk about and have for a long time on the show. And sometimes I feel like it's the dead horse that beat like every episode in some way, shape, or form. But I just, I think it's so important if you are thinking about it, or like whatever, especially I'll say as two men, I think like there's a lot of stigmatization around it. And obviously I think anytime where you can kind of take that away and kind of be like, it's helped me. Like, I think the best thing I've kind of correlated it to is it's like seeing in 2D your whole life, and then they give you the tools and resources, and you're like, holy shit, everything's like in 4D and it's crazy. Like, does everyone else know that this exists? And you're just kind of like, oh, I want people to kind of feel that, like those epiphanies of like, oh, it doesn't have to be bad all the time. Like, I can kind of fix this and help it. So I always, whenever it presents itself, I'm like, let's kind of discuss this and how has it helped somebody else? Because obviously I think more people will know you than me. So it's like, and I'm sure you're pretty vocal about these things as well, but discuss it and kind of like, hopefully maybe this is the thing someone will watch us and be like, oh shit, I guess maybe I need to go to therapy or give this thing a try if, it's worked for Craig and this other person I don't know.
And that's why I like being so open about it. Like it's okay to feel. You can have it's okay. And anytime I say something, if it helps at least one person, great. Then I feel better about myself at the end of the day, and it helps me.
Yeah.
Being of service. It's a give. You want to help people along the way. And again, power and no, it's okay to have feelings. Because trust me, I grew up that way. I was a military kid, I was always the new kid in school. And it didn't matter if I did something right during the day. If I responded to a question without saying, yes, sir, I was still in big trouble. So having feelings was like not okay. You know what I mean? I could not have any sort of, I had to be the man and yes, sir, and handle stuff. So it was like just burying all those feelings for years and years and years. It's tough to come out of that as you get older, but again, change your perspective, power and no, it's okay to have feelings. And fuck the stigmatism, man,
Absolutely. Kind of more to the point of why you're here to talk about, obviously new Dead Rabbit stuff. And I feel like I'd be remiss. I'm sure if I did more digging, I try not to do it too much because then I get fascinated with like questions that people didn't ask or things that I'm like
Yeah.
from a long time ago. So Dead Rabbits, I assume it's based on the old clan from Gangs of New York, or maybe it's just
Gangs of
because
New
I just
York.
watched that movie somewhat recently. So maybe that's why I'm
Well,
positing that.
so I got to give a lot of credit. So my first EP I did for the project, it's because Caleb Shomo believed in me, had some free time. He's like, "Hey man, come out to my studio in Ohio. I'll track you." And we started discussing coming up with a name for it. He's like, just name it Craig Mabbitt. Release this music under that. I'm like, no, that's weird because it's heavier. It's like stuff I've wanted to do ever since I left Bless the Fall and started the Word Alive. I was like, I can't imagine going out on tour and supporting a band and having this backdrop up that just says Craig Mabbitt. That feels weird. So let me think of a band name. And I was watching a lot of Gangs of New York at the time, which is funny.
Okay.
And then I also had the reasoning behind my last name is Mabbitt. Everybody always spells it wrong because they hear Mabbitt, they spell it like rabbit with one T. And my name's two B's, two T's. So I'm like, maybe I'll call this group Dead Rabbits, but then give rabbits two T's so that it's spelt like my last name. And that'll be a cool way to like, hey, this is my thing, but it's also a group name. So that's where the name came from.
Gotcha. No, because I mean, like I said, I've been going back and watching a lot of old movies, so like Gangs of New York and Casino and stuff like that. So like when this came through, I was like, I mean, this is an obvious reference, but like maybe it's not. I don't know. And then it was funny because when kind of going back through looking at like kind of the lineage, because it's like, I know this at times feels sort of, for as much as it's a quote unquote solo project of sorts, it felt like in the beginning, and this is maybe my perception of it, but it almost felt like this was a collective from the jump, because it's like half of the songs, and yes, I pay attention to this on the DSPs, but like I look at the songwriting credits. So it's like there were some where it's like I think the first EP and then the first Shapeshifter I think was like essentially kind of half Caleb and you writing together. And then actually it's funny, I think it was on This Emptiness, one of the songs, and this is really amusing because I've had this person on. I was just kind of going through looking for all the different songwriting credits to see if my idea of like this is sort of a collective versus a solo project. And then it pulled up like like basically all the dudes that I think are in the Dead Daisies. So like John Corabi, like from formerly of Motley Crue, and like Billy, like some other people from the 80s were credited for a song. And I was like, there's no way that they wrote this song. So I think that there's an error. Yeah, there was one off of it. I should go back and look, but they were credited as a songwriter. So I was like, I'm pretty sure you're not working with like all these like 80s legends on a song that does not sound like them at all. And then, so
yeah,
it's
I
funny
wonder why
that
that's on there. Huh?
I don't know.
I guess I'll
but
have
is
to
that
look
more of
into
an
that
accurate?
one.
Would that be more of an accurate statement that Dead Rabbits has kind of morphed over the years to kind of be more of a collective than a solo endeavor of sorts?
It's morphed a lot. You know, it started as a solo thing, but again, I'm a vocalist. I write the lyrics and the melodies, so I always want to get with somebody to help with the music. In the beginning, it was Caleb, and then I go through the friends list, you know, of musicians that I know are talented and I want to play with me. So, you know, Shapeshifter, I had Gus Crines, may you rest in peace, and my buddy Alex Torres, who I met over the years. He played for a bunch of bands, Greeley Estates for a little bit, Alisana for a bit. I had him playing with me. I had TJ involved in the group for a while. And over the years, it has morphed like that. And now the current lineup, it's mainly me, my buddy Eric, who plays bass for Escape the Fate. Our buddy Blake, he plays the drums and he also comes out on tour. He's drum tech for us, tour managed Escape the Fate. He drum techs for Breaking Benjamin now. He plays the drums. And then a buddy here that's been in multiple local bands and still in a bunch of local bands. And we just, Dead Rabbits just played with Scary Kids. He was also playing with Scary Kids. His name's Koba. He's in the group as well. But as far as the writing goes, it's just been me and Eric getting together and working on some songs. And, you know, he lives right down the street. So I just drive down there 15 minutes and we just jam some stuff. And it's been a lot of fun as of recently, because now we have Judge and Jury and Howard Benson that wanted to get involved in the project. So it's really exciting to be working with a team when it comes to this passion project now, as opposed to before where we were just kind of having fun. And anytime we had free time, we try to play a show here and there. But yeah, from the beginning till today, it's just been a great outlet, to scratch that itch I always had of the music I used to do with Bless the Fallen Word Alive, which is a little heavier. I would say Escape, even when we get heavy, it's a little more like an Avenged Sevenfold sort of heavy. And,
Right.
Dead Rabbits would be more like a Under Oath type heavy, which I think there's a difference between the two. And so
Yes.
Dead Rabbits is a nice creative outlet for me to get that out. And it's good because Escape has so many cooks in the kitchen when we go in to do a record. So I might have this idea that I'm super stoked about, and nobody else might kind of see the vision behind it. And I'm like, all right, Eric, let's just drop tune the guitars on this one and add a breakdown, and let's just release it as DR. Let's do it. So it's great in that aspect that I can, get that out creatively.
Last question for you on this, and then I'll let you go because I know you got the one right after me. But is it kind of been interesting to go back through? And I guess it applies to Escape the Fate too, but I think with Dead Rabbits kind of being not a traditional outlet where it comes and goes when it feels right, essentially. Is it kind of funny to slip back into looking back at the discography and thinking back to like how the project started and just, all the different things that you have accomplished in this band when it kind of works into your life? I feel like it would be like an old high school jacket or something where you're like, this thing still fits and it reminds me of these things, but it's not something you dwell in or in all the time.
Yeah. Again, it's just, I have a lot of fun with it. And so anything that helps Dead Rabbit start moving forward a little bit is nothing but exciting. And then plus I don't have to deal with the history that comes along with Escape sometimes. I feel like I'm always battling to, hey, I've worked really hard on these songs. I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve. I'm talking about a lot of great things. And I just feel like sometimes the music with ETF can be overshadowed by the history that's involved with the band and everything that has happened. So again, DR is just more me. It's more of a passion thing, more of a creative outlet. And so anytime I'm able to do something fun with the project, it feels really good.
So obviously at this point you've released 2 singles as of now, Oxygen and Mistake. What is kind of the intent for DR for the rest of this year or maybe next year? Are we ramping up to an EP or a release and a subsequent some tour dates, or is this just kind of put it out just because it felt right to put these songs out now?
Yeah, so we're definitely interested in doing some tour dates, so we're keeping our options open. The team at Judge and Jury was really happy with the release of Mistake and even more happy with the release of Oxygen. So originally it was going to be a 6-song EP. Now it's going to be a full length. So Eric and I just got back 4 or 5 days ago from being out in California and tracking some new songs. And that's really exciting because we had the team suggesting what song they thought was strong to go as a single next. And now we just did 4 new ones. And this song that they were suggesting was part of the original 6. And now they're like, okay, we think all 4 of these are really, really strong. So let's get some mixes on them and then we'll make a decision. So that's always fun to go out, record some new music. They're like, okay, wait a second. We thought this was the strong one, but now we think all 4 of these are great. It's like, yes, just kind of a pat on your back sort of moment.
Absolutely. Anything you would like to plug online or where people can find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on, I mostly use Instagram. I don't have a Facebook. I keep getting DM'd from people like, hey, was talking to you on Facebook. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't have one of those. But you can find me on Instagram, Craig Mabbitt, Dead Rabbits IG, Escape the Fate. I stream on Twitch, like I was mentioning earlier, a lot when I'm not on the road. So that's twitch.tv/Craig Mabbitt, 2 B's, 2 T's. And just thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. And thank you to anybody listening to either band. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your day, and would love to have you back on to kind of do more of a normal episode where it kind of goes a little longer so we can get into some like weird side tangents and such. But thank you for taking the time during your day, and we'll do another one of these maybe when the other songs are out. Finally, we can talk more about this project.
For sure. Yeah. Hit me up. We'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll chat soon.
All right. Thank you, man.
So that was my conversation with Craig. I want to thank him once again for taking the time to do a quick little chat with me. And honestly, I'm really excited to see where this Dead Rabbits thing is. Like, it seemed like when the band had first come out, Craig was just cranking out records. Like, it seemed like every other year, maybe year and a half, it seemed like some music was coming out. And, you know, obviously getting to hear the story of working with Caleb from Beartooth and things like that. That this sort of has always kind of been a collective, but also a solo endeavor. Like, it's always kind of interesting how projects start. You know, obviously last week with the 2-part episode with Chris Kelly of Hillhaven and some other bands, but that essentially Hillhaven started as a solo project for Chris and then morphed into a full-on band. And it sounds like basically that's what Dead Rabbits was, although now it's in a different iteration. So I kind of like the idea every now and again of bands changing and bringing in different lineups and so forth. Like, it's not necessarily my thing, but like a Perfect Circle, I think, is a great example of that, where, you know, Meredith Alms and 13 Step, the band was what it was then into like Emotive and some of the rest of the stuff that has come since. It's not really what I've been into, but there's kind of different eras for different people. And I think it probably keeps the creativity level going, bringing new blood in, new ideas, different backgrounds, influences, and so forth. I definitely see why it works and why it gets people excited to do a thing again. But I think what I'm excited about right now with the new Dead Rabbits thing is it seems like the goal is to kind of just put out songs when they're done versus trying to build a full collection. So maybe that'll allow for a little bit more artistic freedom for Craig and whomever he's working with to divulge into something different maybe. And maybe Dead Rabbits can kind of become a little bit different than what it has been. So I don't know. I like, to me, that's exciting. I'm excited to see how all this goes and plans out. But let's start wrapping up the episode. If you would like to keep up with Dead Rabbits, it's simple enough. Twitter, Facebook, Dead Rabbits, Instagram, Dead Rabbits IG. If you'd like to keep up with Escape the Fate, it's real simple. Escape the Fate on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Super easy. And if you'd like to keep up with Craig, you can find him at Craig Mabbitt on both Instagram and Twitter as well. Keep up with his Twitch channel, twitch.tv, Craig Mabbitt. All the latest going-ons with whatever he is doing. And if you'd like to keep up with the podcast, Brew Speak Pod on all your major social media platforms. Rate, review, subscribe, whatever you can do on whatever you are listening to this to. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Keep the conversation going with me. Give me some guest suggestions, brutallyspeaking@gmail.com. And Rockabilia. I've been saying it for years now, literal years. Head on over to rockabilia.com. Use our code BRUTALLY at checkout. Take 10% off your total purchase order. Save some money. Buy some great products from a great company. Really want to thank them, honestly, just for all the help that they have given me for the show, for myself personally. I honestly, there are a lot of companies that say they do great things for people, and this is one of those where the company literally has bailed my ass out in a lot of situations. Be it for the podcast, where if I need to update some equipment when something breaks or goes down, or in some situations like in my life. I said it a couple episodes ago, but I haven't worked in 2 months, and the podcast money that they graciously pay me really, 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 really helped out. So I really hope people go over to Rockabilia and use our code and get some really cool stuff. I love those guys and gals that are over there. Support them, please. And for the Brutally Speaking podcast, I am John, and I'll see you all next week, where I have Ryan Knight of the Black Dahlia Murder. That was a quick chat as well. Looking forward to getting that one out. I'll talk to you all then.